Today's topic is prescriptive nonfiction, and if you've got 5 minutes, I've got 5 tips to help you write prescriptive nonfiction that your readers will really learn something from. So do you know the difference between narrative nonfiction and prescriptive nonfiction? We talked about narrative nonfiction in the last episode, and today we're focusing on prescriptive nonfiction. And before you embark on any kind of a nonfiction writing project, you have to know the difference between the two. Now, I'm kind of surprised I haven't embarked on this topic a long time ago in this particular Write, Fix, Repeat series, because as anyone who's been watching me for a while knows, I did start my career as a nonfiction writer and primarily a prescriptive nonfiction writer. I have a lot of experience in that area from back at the beginning of my writing career. So let's begin with my definition of what prescriptive nonfiction is. A genre of writing focused on providing readers with specific advice, guidance, or instructions on how to achieve a particular outcome or solve a problem. I want to show you a couple of examples from my own work. As many of you know, I spent 26 years as a university professor in the area of corporate communications. And corporate communication ethics and strategy was my main area, although I went to teach initially to teach writing. But I ended up developing a career in ethics and strategy. And one of my most popular books, as it has turned out, is called Public Relations Ethics, A Guide to Best Practice. And you can tell even from the title of the book that the focus is on practice. So what people learn when they read this book is things like how to make ethical decisions. So that makes it prescriptive nonfiction. And last year, I wrote 1 Year to Author, a roadmap guide for writing and publishing your book in 1 year. And you can tell again from the title of that book that it provides guidance and how-to guidance for people so that they can accomplish something in particular, so that they can accomplish an objective. And that's at the heart of much prescriptive nonfiction. Earlier in my career as a medical writer, I co-wrote several books which were prescriptive nonfiction trade books. When Older is Wiser, A Guide to Healthcare Decisions for Older Adults and Their Families, and Patient Power, The Smart Patient's Guide to Healthcare. These are 2 of the 4 books that I co-wrote with my husband, and these are prescriptive nonfiction books. They're also out of print right now, in case you're wondering. You might find an old copy kicking around Amazon somewhere. So what makes these books prescriptive? Why do they call it that? Well, as I said, prescriptive nonfiction will teach you how to do something. It's like a prescription from a doctor that tells you what you should do. So if you're going to write a book that gives people instructions, then you're going to write prescriptive nonfiction. So here are the kinds of books I'm talking about, the categories that fall within the overall genre of prescriptive nonfiction. Self-help books come immediately to mind, of course. Then there would be how-to guides if you're going to give someone instructions on how to do some kind of a craft or a skill. Instructional books like public speaking, for example. Then there would be professional development. If you're a business person and you're thinking about writing a book, this is the kind of book that you would probably write. Something that would focus on something like productivity, for example, if that happens to be your area of expertise. Now for my 5 tips. Tip number 1, know your audience and their needs. When you're writing prescriptive nonfiction, you have to identify exactly who it is you're writing for. It's important on 2 levels. First, you need to understand who they are because you need to figure out what it is they need to know. The second level is you need to know who they are because you need to know how to add a voice to this that will engage with the readers who are interested in this particular topic. This isn't like writing fiction. This isn't like writing fiction where you don't have to identify an audience. For prescriptive nonfiction, you absolutely do need to know who is going to read this book. Tip number 2, structure your content logically. This is not the opportunity for you to write a book organically, or to go by the seat of your pants, or to go without an outline. You need an outline for a prescriptive nonfiction book, and it needs to be an outline that is focused on logic. You begin with the overall larger concepts and move to the smaller ones. Every time I do one of these episodes, for example, if there is terminology, if there are concepts that I think people might not understand, I begin with that so that we have a shared understanding of what we're talking about. And that's what you do when you write prescriptive nonfiction. You begin with the overall concepts and then move into the specific ones. Obviously, you can do this logical development, or you can use a kind of a problem solution kind of approach to it. It depends on what the topic is, but those are kind of the fundamental ways that you need to structure a prescriptive nonfiction book. Tip number 3, offer your readers clear, actionable steps. Really useful nonfiction gives readers really clear, really specific things that they can do to achieve a specific goal. You need to think about this when you're writing an outline for a book like this. What are the steps that someone could take to achieve this goal? You need to break down complex processes into simple steps. Give people clear, simple steps to achieve larger goals. Really, you need to make sure that your readers understand what the steps are that they need to do to achieve that particular outcome that you're promising them they'll be able to do by the end of the book. Tip number 4, use real-life examples. Now, this is where you can add some aspects of narrative writing, and you can make your narrative writing shine. Using anecdotal examples that illustrate the sort of concrete step-by-step kind of process really helps people to see how this works in action. And anecdotes, which include you as the central person in it, or someone else as a central person, can help your reader to identify with your topic more specifically. Tip number 5, use an encouraging and supportive voice. You know, the people who are looking for prescriptive nonfiction are looking for it for a particular reason. And if you go back to tip number 1, about where I suggested that you needed to know your audience, this is where you get a sense of how supportive and how encouraging you need to be. The voice you use is going to be quite different if, for example, you're writing for children versus writing for middle-aged people versus writing for seniors, for example. It's going to be different if you're writing for people who know a lot about this topic already or people who know very little about it. Keep that in mind. Now, before I finish, surely I don't need to say this, but I would like you to step away from any topic that you are not an expert in. No one should be writing prescriptive nonfiction in a topic area that they do not have any expertise in. It seems now, these days, everybody wants to tell their story in terms of a memoir about their experience of what they have gone through, and unfortunately, these are usually sad experiences. The problem is that oftentimes people write these books and they want to turn them into how-to books for people, to tell people how to do something. Don't turn a memoir into a how-to book. You are not an expert in the area. If someone learns something from your particular experience, that's great. Go back to the last episode and learn something about narrative nonfiction, but don't make it into prescriptive nonfiction. Happy writing. Subscribe to Write, Fix, Repeat. And maybe I can help you improve your writing knowledge and skills. 5 tips at a time.